Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's up, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right.
There's a lot of interesting things happening in real time, dude. I don't even know how to start.
Yeah. Well, Trump and Elon are battling on Twitter.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's one thing. Pump.Fun is dominating. They're about to raise $1 billion in cash money.
Imminent, dude. Either they...
It's confirmed. It's programmed.
Yeah, it's either crypto's greatest, like, unicorn app story or crypto's greatest mass extraction event. It's one or the other, right? Those are the two camps.
We've seen bigger mass extraction events, right?
Well, like EOS?
EOS, yeah. $4 billion of
but
now converted Bitcoin money.
But that was over a year, right? So it didn't feel like, it didn't feel like a stab to the gut. It felt like 1,000 needles, right?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
That was a much better approach to extracting billions. Not like...
Man, so what was the justification, though, at the time, Ivan? Do you remember, like, we want $4 billion, and it's like, okay, we'll give you $4 billion. Like,
it did say we want $4 billion. All it said was we're doing a year-long ICO. Here's how much ETH, like, every day, I guess, is, like, up for ETH to EOS conversion, right? So, essentially, basically, every day, this much ETH we can accept, right, on their website. It was literally just like, here's a website.
Oh, wow.
Here's a countdown to, like, the end of the ICO, and it's like, you got some ETH? Then give it to us, and you'll get some token by the time this timer runs out, right?
So, but it was a year long, right? It was a whole year.
Entire year.
They were just
every day that, like,
accepting ETH.
It got refreshed, right? It's like, all right, now you can buy again until it's all sold out for the day.
So that was $4 billion worth of ETH that they got.
Yes. I think so.
Which is now all Bitcoin, mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Or a significant portion of it to where they've ended up on the top 10 leaderboard of Bitcoin holders, right? So you could interpret that as, like, the biggest extraction or, like, the biggest fumble. Because, yeah, you would assume a crypto team that raised $4 billion from the public would do something crazy, right? Like, you know.
Like something cool, like an app or something.
Yeah, produce, like, something, right? But no, it didn't. So is that the biggest fumble in crypto history ever? Or because they bought mostly Bitcoin with their earnings, their winnings, is it, like, the biggest, like, W in crypto ever? I don't know. It's per interpretation. Obviously, EOS hasn't, like,
disappeared completely.
But you can't also pinpoint, like, you know, they really pushed the ball forward much, right? Other than they definitely catalyzed them, and along with others like Cardano and other Ethereum chain spinoffs attempts, they definitely catalyzed the idea we just need more chains, right? We need to just continually iterate on what blockchains can be and what they're used for.
So you asked an interesting question. Has EOS moved the ball forward? If I were to ask you, has Pump.Fun moved the ball forward, what would you say?
I think in my interpretation, I like where the headspace is at as a result of Pump.Fun. It's like, now let's chase after killer apps in the industry. Like, in other words, things that actually generate significant revenue.
Sure.
Things that can compete with, like, you know, successful Web 2 apps, right? Like, you got a ton of them out there producing, you know, AI apps, whatever.
Yeah.
Generating hundreds of millions in revenue annually. We finally got a Web 3 app that's doing the same thing, right? So now we're actually producing some valuable things, and now launch a token around that, as opposed to, you know, some nebulous chain that we don't know what it's going to be used for. We don't know if revenue is ever going to trickle into it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is more of like a practical market appreciation of something of substance, right? Even though you look at the numbers, a lot of people are getting giga-wrecked. You know?
Well, it just depends who you ask. I mean, I don't think those numbers are 100% accurate. But yes, if you were to ask me, do I think Pump.Fun has moved the ball forward? I would say yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they've proven what OpenSea proved last cycle, right? Like, you can create, like, a market meta that has, like, you know, interest for people to, you know, essentially be a part of and to be consumers of, right?
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. For those of you who are watching or listening, please put in the comment section below. What do you think? Has Pump.Fun moved the ball forward? Was it purely an extractive sort of marketplace? Like, what do you guys think? Because we're going to give our deeper opinions here throughout this podcast, and we'll explain why we think the ball has actually moved forward here. But I feel like in the knee-jerk reaction to something like Pump.Fun, which we had the same reaction at the very beginning, was that this is purely extractive. There's no real gain here. That sentiment.
Yeah, I don't know if we looked deep enough initially. All we saw was that,
But I think it's sort of like when you're first introduced to Bitcoin. Like for me, for example, when I first saw Bitcoin, the headlines, it's for scams and drug purchasing, money laundering. That was it. I was like, okay, that's
terrorist funding.
I understand what Bitcoin is now. Let's move on to something relevant to what I'm concerned about.
That's right. It's like, that's just internet funny money. It's never going to turn into anything serious.
Yeah. So what we saw with Pump.Fun is like more memes, fart coin, like people. And then we were thinking, when is the whole society going to take us seriously? Right. That's what we were wondering when things like fart coin are reaching $1 billion market cap.
Yeah. And people are live streaming like their destructive behaviors to try and pump a coin, right? So yeah, I mean, those were legitimate, valuable concerns and contention points to whether or not this is a good product to represent. Like we're saying, this is the unicorn that we've come up with after a decade or so of like iteration.
Yeah, and we've seen unicorns here, right? OpenSea, Uniswap, now Pump.Fun. And a lot of these, like you could see, is like, okay, there's meaningful value, but I don't think Pump.Fun is obvious in that fact.
Well, largely because a lot of those things we just kind of like pointed out, right? It's just, it doesn't have the look and feel and appeal of like a mass market consumer product, right? It was felt very dark web-y, right?
Yeah, consider this, like Uniswap was a unicorn because they brought like a real valuable DeFi, decentralized finance. Like finally, programmable money does something. Right?
Yeah, they introduced a new technical primitive, right? And that solved a lot of problems.
And then NFTs, the craze at the time were PFPs, but it was like now creators or artists can have a mechanism to generate some revenue where otherwise there was no other way to do so.
Correct. And ultimately, each of these like unicorns, they've brought about like new leaps forward in like the capital formation mechanics.
Yeah,
that's native to like on-chain industries, right?
But then you look at Pump.Fun, it's like, but they just launched memes though. Like, well, how's that valuable? It's not in the launching of memes, it's how they launched. Yeah, that's what's valuable.
Yeah, you gotta peer under the skirt a bit.
Yeah,
just a little lift, and then
just a little lift.
You see like some actual like innovation there, not in the aspect of like they've invented something like completely novel to our industry, but they've applied it under the right like scheme, I guess.
It's like the right recipe.
Yeah, which I think in the context of like app developers, that's what we do, right? We try to, we hope we're building in like a mature enough ecosystem where there's enough tools, there's enough infrastructure, and there's enough like actual people paying attention to the things that we build.
Yeah.
To create these killer recipes, right? So where, now we've generated 500, 700 million as like as a business, right? And a lot of people in Web3 might not like that term, right? Business. It's like, well, that's not Web3. Businesses are for Web2, right? So there's a little bit of that too. There's like a counterculture resistance to what Pump.Fun is. It's like, it's somebody, it's a team, a project, founder, whatever, who built a legitimate business in crypto, as opposed to like what people have been like ideologically hoping for, right? It's like a successful DAO, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a business. They generated revenue. They didn't just like launch a token and like hope for the skies would make the token rise, and all of a sudden that's not revenue. That's just your balance, your asset balance has gone up. That's not revenue.
Correct. Yeah, and they generated this revenue without the need of a token to incentivize activity. That means they found product market fit, which is incredibly hard to do. And I think something that people who are like max fudding Pump.Fun should recognize a little bit.
Just look under the skirt.
Yeah. So what's under the skirt, dude? What are we talking about?
So I guess this mechanism has gotten a name. It's called internet capital markets. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
And in this internet capital market formation, it's a type of launch where the launch is against this bonding curve that allows for price discovery to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And in that price discovery, there is a stark difference between what that is and what we saw in the ICO mania, the IDO mania, the NFT mania, where in each mania, creators who launched a thing set a market cap.
Mm-hmm.
And that market cap was, on average, inflated. And so what that means is, as when the token launches, people buy it up. Yeah, number goes up, maybe. Well, at the time it did, because that was the opportunity of the time. But in the long term of things, everything is essentially down 99%. It doesn't matter what it is you're looking at.
Yeah. So they figured out how to weaponize a new technical primitive to essentially lower the starting inertia, right?
Yeah, so low that we're talking about $50 market caps, $4,000 market caps at the very beginning. So what does that mean?
In context of that, for an NFT sale, typically 10,000 assets, right, are being sold.
Yeah.
In the legacy model of things, how to sustain creation, right? That means a creator would have to price things at like 50 cents each.
Yeah.
To have that low bar of starting inertia to introduce a product to market.
Yeah, and that means the creator only makes $5,000. It's like, that's not a really mania, right?
Yeah. Not many artists or game developers or whatever are going to be attracted to our industry.
No.
If you're telling them the max get is $5,000,
it's not going to work.
Yeah, no thanks, dog.
Yeah,
I'll stay, building my game for Steam. I'll take my chances there.
Yeah.
Right. Or, I'll go, if I'm an artist, I don't know, the Las Vegas Boulevard, and I'll set up my little kiosk.
Yeah.
And do the little paintings.
Yeah.
And maybe someone will give me,
yeah, you'll make more than $5,000 with enough time.
I agree. So it's like, you got to create a good equilibrium and balance between the creator needs and like the market participant needs, right?
Yeah.
Which in the legacy times, the balance was there, right? People were
it was there, and because the understanding, the ethos, the opportunity was there. So yeah, maybe the creator set the market cap not $5,000, they set it at $1 million, which each asset would cost about $100,
mm-hmm.
and people were okay with buying $100 NFT on launch.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they interpreted it as, if I believe the artist was good, I could sell this $100 asset for $200.
Yeah. All right, it's pretty much. So that doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
So as a result of that, you've got a non-viable creator ecosystem, right? And Pump.Fun itself, even though it's kind of like proving some concepts, it hasn't like completely solved the problem yet either, right? It's simply proving that you can, again, set these inertia bars low, but they found the perfect product demographic to fit within that, where there really is no like creator needs that need to be fulfilled, right? We're talking about meme coins here. It doesn't take like much capital or effort to, assemble one of these creations, right? It's dependent on like where you are in time, what is vibing into like, through the universe, and whether or not you can capture that and package that in like a viral hit.
Yeah, correct. What you're describing is a no risk of execution.
Yes.
For memes.
Correct. But still, like that fulfills perfectly the perfect formula and recipe for that demographic. But there's still, what we feel is a much bigger demographic opportunity that needs, to be factored into these markets, right?
Yeah. So how does this work? So Pump.Fun, its lifetime revenue is $700 million, and they've generated roughly $600 million in like a short amount of time. Let's say like 3 to 6 months, and they're still generating, probably around $2 million a day, right? So, but this revenue here is based off of fees trading on the bonding curve, and now in their pump swap decks, right? But the point is that imagine if a portion of these fees were sent to a creator, right? From an ecosystem standpoint,
right?
What could you do? right? And so that is the thesis. It's like, what if we created a technology that we could distribute this value proposition to a community of creators? You could generate probably more money than this because there's a wider demographic of people who like to create stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, if you weaponize that, which was, if you've been paying attention to our channel, we've been trying our best to find different like project iterations, realizing that there's opportunity there because of the technology infrastructure allows it now. Like, different dexes are starting to foster the right, I guess, programmability when it comes to like, who are the recipients of these fees that are being generated from the on-chain markets, right? And some people are creating like whole new lottery schemes. We talked about that this week. It's like a Powerball, literally, where people who hold the tokens, you're just like natively participating in this lottery distribution of rewards that are being accrued through the trading activity of the token itself. Like that's a novel attempt at weaponizing these fees. And then, of course, Believe is a platform that's directing that, that fuel to creators who need, to sustain their development, right? Web2, just like last cycle, we had a lot of starving artists.
Yeah.
That the on-chain mechanics all of a sudden found a way to sustain their activity. There's a lot of starving developers out there.
Yeah.
Young guys graduating from high school or maybe college. It's a very competitive work market out there, right? There's a lot of people. And now with AI,
yeah,
it's going to get more challenging for them to find, capital or like, I don't know, just find their place within like the economy of things.
Yeah, AI could do all kinds of things, either make it cheaper to launch a project or make it even more difficult because everybody is launching a project.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it's like, so direct some of that to their direction to, hopefully with the tools of AI and with their ability, they can create another killer app, right? Because we don't just want one unicorn app a cycle.
Yeah.
That's not going to be conducive to, a healthy image for Web3 in general. Like we need many unicorn apps to be spawning annually, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that is the thesis. That's why we think, Pump.Fun is actually moving the ball forward because it has spawned creativity. And in the fact that if you could develop an app that generates $700 million, but within that app, that $700 million is divvied up with two creators, you could spawn an ecosystem that is long-term effective in terms of creating more stuff.
Yeah, so we're going to use the words legacy and modern more frequently, I think, moving forward. So we're describing like legacy stuff. Like if you're wondering what is legacy, it's OpenSea, it's Magic Eden, it's even mScribe, the things that we've already built in the past, right?
Yeah.
Like these are the legacy things that are operating under the legacy expectations of how do you foster markets on chain, right? Like that's the stuff that worked 4 years ago very well, but is not working today.
Yeah.
Because there's an incompatibility with like, how the market's behaving. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the modern stuff is the new stuff. Pump.Fun is kind of like proven that there's a new way to change the monetization mechanisms of our markets, right? And one of our team members gave a good parallel analogy to this. It's like whenever the video game industry shifted from $60 a copy per game to everything's free.
Yeah.
Because they shifted the monetization models around a bit and they understood like we don't have to charge for our games anymore.
And those companies that were essentially selling their games for free were generating billions of dollars.
Yeah, they generated more and it fostered more game development and it created like UGC ecosystems around this stuff.
Yep.
Where now more people can start to create more value in the industry. Like it was a monumental shift and inflection point in the industry of gaming itself.
Yeah, that's why very commonly you would find a game that is just completely free. You just download it and you just run it and play it, and that's it.
Yeah, so I think it's good overall, so long as we could figure out like the right interconnectivity between like, these new modern markets and supporting like real creation at the end of the day. Because I think if it works, we don't know because what we have envisioned hasn't been like fully realized yet by anybody. Like, we're headed down that direction ourselves, but I'm sure there's others out there
Yeah.
who see what we see and realize, like, what should be done.
Yeah.
But it's challenging to execute on, but we feel like, the result of it is we're kind of running back how things kind of originated, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But again, under these modern rails, which we think will have even like a bigger end game result.
So let me walk you through an example of a proof of concept. So let me go to Magic Eden, and we're gonna look up Natcats. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Natcats, this is the first PFP project from the DMT ecosystem, and the total all-time volume is 636 Bitcoin. So let's assume that a lot of the volume occurred during the spreadsheet phase of Natcats. So let's assume 1,000 Bitcoin. That's $100 million worth of trading volume, right? So if a percentage of that had gone to the creator, 1%, that would have been $1 million to the creator of Natcats EV. So that is an effective strategy. Why is it effective? Is because to mint one of these things at the very beginning, it was about $1. And if you look at the current floor price of one of these Natcats, it's about $500, right? $567. So we're looking at a 500x difference. And this is after it crashed from a 10,000x gain down to a 500x gain.
Yeah, this is it at its ordinal's lowest point, right?
Yeah, correct.
Like the whole sector of ordinals is down pretty bad, right? But like you're saying, even still, if you happen to be, I guess early enough, you're still up tremendously. And so what does that do? That fulfills the expectations of market participants. In other words, like this is the opportunity they're looking for, and they want to be participants in markets that foster that regularly-ish, right?
Yeah.
Like the way Pump.Fun has, like, it's a tough competitive market. And, because there are a lot of native issues within the Pump ecosystem and, just what exists today as far as tech infrastructure, things like sniping and, MEV and such, like it is it can get to a heavily skewed.
Yeah. It's not a panacea over there. It's not perfect.
But I feel like that's the way all markets are, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're speculating on like something as mature as the stock market or in equities markets, it's not like you're auto winning in these markets.
There's fraud in stock markets as well, by the way.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So it's something that's factored into your risk, portfolio, your appetite, whether or not. But nonetheless, these markets remain active. And again, so long as they're being, I think, directed to support things that are more long-term sustainable, like actual creation of things, like overall, I think it's a net gain for the space, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we went through a series of cycles where there was systemic overinflation of market caps, and that just doesn't work on average anymore. And so price discovery is the way. So that's just a quick example of what like a proof of concept of what we're talking about actually coming in the context of like an ordinal or any asset that starts without a given market cap. And it was sort of natural in the context of Bitcoin because many things launched on Bitcoin without a starting market cap, just because of the structure of Bitcoin and how it works. So a lot of things that launched, like for example, the NAT token, you minted a NAT token and it was just whatever the price Bitcoin gave you, right? Whatever the fees were at the time, that's how much it cost to mint an individual asset. And so you couldn't set market caps for these things. And so those tend to be more successful because there's a more truer price discovery of a given asset.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think about, what is the differences between, because Hyperliquid, it's being conspirized, or people are assuming, why Pump is raising $1 billion after they've, generated almost $1 billion in revenue. Like, what do they need this extra capital for one? And why do you think people are interpreting it like as such a negative in comparison to like something like Hyperliquid? I guess they never raised publicly like this, right?
Yeah, I don't think they raised publicly like this. Yeah, why? I think people got an initial bad taste on Pump.Fun, and so when they hear, so it's like bad taste on Pump.Fun. Let me move on to my other life focuses,
That's true.
and then it's like, what do you mean Pump.Fun is raising $1 billion from the public, or at least a portion of it?
Yeah,
and like that's another bad taste, right? And so I think that's largely what's been happening. Now, we spend a lot of time on crypto Twitter, and these people are more in the know, but I think the take still stands, is that it's an initial fade, and then without looking into it, like we have, like peering under the skirt, like the initial fade sort of persists.
Yeah, I guess it's too early to make like a full on judgment position on whether or not, you know, this will end up being a good thing overall. So like what is like a good outcome for this? Obviously, people who participate in this sale, you know, don't get completely burnt in the process, right? Like that's good, because if we're as an industry labeling Pump.Fun as like a unicorn breakthrough consumer app, you know, follow up to that being like a token sale resulting in a number go down situation, that's going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to just continuing the negative stigma of things, right?
Yeah, so their starting market cap, which they're setting, which is the great antithesis of what I was saying earlier, they're setting a market cap of $4 billion. But what is the, you still need to understand the context of what $4 billion is, because initially it sounds high. But looking into what OpenSea did, they raised money at a $10 billion valuation, roughly. And so this is comparatively.
Let's make sure of that. Let's see.
Yeah. So and then let's compare that to Hyperliquid's existing valuation is 11 billion, right? So if they do take Hyperliquid's strategy, which is launching a token and launching your own chain, you know, there's some upside potential here.
Yeah, but by the way, that 11 billion you're saying, that's not even FTV. It's 30 billion FTV. So, you know, Pump.Fun
That's true.
Is 4 billion FTV. So
that's almost a 10x.
Yeah, almost.
Or 8x specifically.
Yeah, so the conspiracy is like, what are they going to do? Why are they doing this? Most likely they're going to spin up their own chain.
Yeah, so that strategy, I mean, Elon said it himself, is you want to remove dependencies, your tech dependencies, when you create an application. So right now they're depending on Solana.
Yeah.
Right. So now with their own chain, they're only depending on themselves.
Yeah, that's the ApeChain thesis, right? That's why people have been advocating for this direction all along, right? You know, just if you have a consumer demographic you're targeting, you know what kind of apps you want to build. You know, you need a chain that's specifically purposed for that end. It's much more efficient and whatnot, optimized. And as a result of that, are cleaner user experiences, I guess, right? But it definitely creates like a bifurcation of liquidity scenario across the entire space.
And it does, yeah.
And we experience that all the time, like just covering the space, like as content creators. It's like every week there's like a hot potato of like there's liquidity migration between different chains because something's happening on this one.
Yeah.
Capitalize on that momentum, dries out. All right, bridge everything to this one, capitalize on that new week-long phenomena, 2 weeks, whatever. And it's just a game of musical chairs, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very weird and definitely not like, normie friendly, right? Or developer friendly.
No, yeah, that sucks. Right, you're trying to maintain relevancy, and you want to be where the people are at. And if the people are always migrating their liquidity all over the place, it's like how do you sustain anything?
Yeah, it's tough. But just to bring up the OpenSea clarity, they raised at a $13.3 billion valuation in 2022, $300 million in Series C round. So, I mean,
$300 million at 13 billion.
This is in January of 2022.
They gave up nothing for $300 million.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are, basically 3 years later, and token's still not out there. Right. So those investors.
Yeah, they're waiting.
They're waiting.
They're waiting. We assume that OpenSea was going to do the IPO route, not the.
Yeah.
not a public offering for
because
via tokens.
They had every opportunity to essentially do what Pump is doing here, right? Because they were the darling unicorn of last cycle. They built the consumer app that was like showcasing Web3's primitives and, you know, use cases.
Yeah.
And they had all the revenue at the time, right? They were generating hundreds of millions of dollars on a monthly basis. That's what led up to this valuation, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward to today, I think they're like in motion to try and drop a token at some point.
Yeah.
And like you look at their revenue, it's like nothing.
Their volumes have drastically dropped off.
Yeah, I think we looked at it recently. It's like in the single digit millions on a daily basis volume.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not good, right? In the same sense, like you can paint a comparable analysis to Hyperliquid with Pump.Fun because of its current day revenues and much more recent like momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you could expect it to kind of pull off like a Hyperliquid-esque like run up, but you still got that doubt because it's like it's meme markets versus perpetuals markets, which have proven longevity, right?
Yeah.
And pump markets, meme markets, it's still brand new stuff. We don't know if this is going to be like sustainable forever or not.
Yeah, but memes have been around for a while. It's just now we're actually tokenizing them, and so, I mean, they could last. But I want to get back to this point here that they're setting a market cap, and we're in a realm where it's not a good idea to set a market cap. But that what I mean is that when you set a market cap, it typically is set at a too high of a valuation. Like in the case of OpenSea, $13 billion today, it's crazy. At the time, it made sense. But this $4 billion valuation, it could be reasonable in the context of like their specific strategy, which could be Hyperliquid strategy, creating their own chain and ApeChain.
Yeah. So people who are, there's a demographic of investor who finds these types of token launches appealing, right?
Yeah.
Or these ICOs, because, these are well vetted companies, well vetted, teams. There isn't that, super high risk of it going to zero. I mean, of course it still could.
Yeah.
That would be pretty, again, like a Terra Luna collapse-esque of a situation,
Yeah.
But still, some people will probably buy into this and they'll be perfectly okay with that thesis. Like, okay, it's going to pull off a Hyperliquid 10x. I'm happy. Right?
Yeah.
10x over the next 6 months, but it's got to do these things, right? Where revenue sustains or grows over time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's important.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that explains our take on Pump.Fun. I think it's a pretty unique take. I don't see too many people talking about it in this context.
I mean, everybody has their own, interpretation of it, because I think the largest thing is the interpretation of revenue versus extraction, right?
Yeah, correct.
That's really what it is. So people see is like, okay, $700 million like in the pockets of Pump.Fun, forget about the fact that they fostered like a viable market for the last year and a half. Still, that's money taken from the users to, give it to somebody else.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, $700 million is a lot of money, but it's 0.25% of the volume, roughly. So it's like if you don't like the $700 million, well, don't move $70 billion through their platform, right? It's that simple.
Yeah, but there's a reason why people were moving that much through the platform. Like it's a product that people enjoyed, right? It is what it is, right? But what we're saying is this isn't the end all be all product of crypto, right? It's just they've established a blueprint of how do you build like new product verticals around a systemic way of making things actually work in today's modern market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which we haven't. So those are just words. We just need to see actual thoughtful execution around that and seeing it applied, which the good news is
it's happening.
It's happening. And we're seeing, things like Doppler.
Yeah. I was going to say,
start to, really come out and show its existence, right? Because we've been tracking Doppler for several months now, but they've been kind of like a quiet force behind the curtain. Remember Zora?
Yeah.
Zoro captured a lot of mindshare and attention for a brief moment in time because it's, attempting to do exactly what we're talking about, like weaponize these new systemic modern rails for a new consumer application, right? It's a market of content.
Yeah, tokenized posts.
Yeah, coin it, right? Was the thing.
Yeah, coin posts. Yeah,
just coin it, bro.
Yeah.
If you got a post of like, I don't know, something like, think of all your feeds that we're consumed with every single day.
Yeah,
it's a new mode of, I guess, market validation, whether this thing is valuable or not, as opposed to how do we do that today? Thumbs up, right? We just like content on like Instagram or Twitter, and the algorithm picks up on that, and like that's what's fed to us.
Yeah.
Did enough people like spam that thumbs up button?
Yeah, that could be the new way to determine what is fed to us. If a post has a high valuation, that means people are actually staking their money on this post, and therefore it's like, you know what? I'm going to share this post as an algorithm, as an AI algorithm. I'm going to share this with more people.
100%. It's the reason why prediction markets are so powerful, right? Like they tend to actually predict the future.
That's right. That's because money is at stake.
Yeah, so it's like it's a true representation of like a valuable prediction.
Yeah,
and like in applying that into the markets of content output, it's like it's a much more better, like, I don't know, like
filter of value.
Yeah, like what is it we should be inundated with, right?
Yeah,
it's a collective effort amongst the entire pool of participants to make that judgment call in real time.
You know what's scary about this though is that violence and even I guess all kinds of like bad activities are like they hit a certain part of our brain that it becomes mimetic. And and therefore, like all of a sudden we see like violence on Twitter. Like why? It's like because people engage with it. Yeah. And so if people are going to engage with it, that means it has a high value. So token value could go up, and therefore buy token. Mm-hmm. And if the value goes up, it gets shared more often, and it becomes more of a realization of our minds, really, of what we share.
Yeah, but that's just like it's not just violence, right?
No, it's not just violence, but I don't necessarily want to see violence on my feed because I rather not.
Yeah. So then you just filter out. It's like these coins or whatever will have their own like category tags.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a violence coin. Right? The market has just decreed it, or whoever launched it, deployed it, as part of the user interface of launching a coin.
Yeah.
Add the tags, right? Is this
or AI will add the tag and
that's
it'll
true.
Just like
yeah, I saw somebody get their head blown off. That's pretty violent. So
yeah.
And then Will over here said he doesn't want to see none of that. So even though it's at like a 20 billion market cap.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Will never know until he goes back to Twitter, which, it'll make its way over there and you'll see it anyways, no matter what.
Right. Right.
Just because you're right. It's weird how that category of content tends to
it is weird
creep on our feed, but that's probably more of like a thing about us than anything.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like my point is that the mind gets exploited in that way.
Yeah. Or what does that say about us? I don't know, because I don't know if everybody's the same. Maybe it's more of a guy thing. I don't know.
It could be.
I don't know. Because like my girlfriend, she doesn't have any of that on her feed, and she wonders why I do. She's like, why do you have like people getting run over and like just like dudes in Chicago just like capping each other left and right?
Yeah.
I don't get none of that. It's like, why do you get that? Well, I keep clicking on it.
Yeah.
You should quit hearting it, man. It'll quit.
It's really that simple, right? But the problem is, I don't know. It's just I don't know, captivating, I guess.
No, I mean, I'm not saying like, on average, violence is bad, but I guess it's okay to consume it if you're into it, right? I mean, if it's there and
if your mind can like stomach it.
I think it's okay in the context of like understanding your environment. You're in the jungle. You need to know what's out there, and it's fine.
I agree. I always say the same thing. Like the reason why I would tend to click on these things because I don't experience stuff like that very frequently. But I'm aware that like I'm in the city where like this is happening. Right?
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
We live in Houston, dude. This is like you said, this is the concrete jungle where things are going down.
Yeah, you need to be aware. Yeah, for sure. You can't just think that it's all like ripped abs and like fucking models out there. Like you got to know the truth.
Yeah, ripped abs and like avocado toast and fucking matcha teas and shit like that.
Right.
That's not reality. It's pulling up to a gas station and you just get robbed.
All of a sudden the lights turn off.
Dead.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe the next time you pull up to a gas station in Houston, you're a little more quick about it, right? Shit like
Hell
that.
yeah.
I feel like that's a good learning
lesson.
experience, right? That's a good addition to my knowledge pool.
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah. Plus, there's tactics you can learn. Like these
well,
people.
Fucking roll. It's like the roll and duck. What tactics, dude? What do you
No, I'm just
running
saying.
a zigzag. We all know that.
Zigzag.
No, like you're in the gas station and you make sure you lock your door. You go on the other side. You're putting in gas. Since the door is locked, nobody can just drive up, open the door, steal your wallet.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, because you know to lock your door because you've seen it so many times on Twitter that people get their stuff stolen.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? If you don't know that exists, you're just gonna leave your door unlocked and
you're a victim.
You're a victim. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the modern day, like understanding our jungle environment where we're like, you know what? There's monkeys in those trees. Yeah, and they tend to jump down here and like steal our children.
Yeah.
So I should probably be spending most of my day like sharpening my spear.
Sure. Yeah.
And my arrow.
Yeah.
In case one of those fuckers jumps down, it's like I gotta like defend my children, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The jungle environment is crazy, dude. I've been like watching a lot of what's it called? The like survival YouTubers. And like they just go out there and like get deployed into the Amazon jungle.
Mr. Beast?
No, his name's Mav. If you want to look him up.
Mav?
He's like an ice fisherman guy. That's how he started his channel, but now he's like getting bold, right? He's like, let me go to the fucking Amazon jungle and like try and survive for like 5 days and
try to survive anacondas and
well, that's the interest part of it, right? Because he's vlogging like the whole thing, basically. So you never know, dude. There's like howler monkeys in his trees, like while he's asleep.
Yeah,
imagine that. And he had to like build his own shelter, like just off of like shrubbery and shit. And then all you hear is like fucking howling monkeys all night, right? So to me, that's appealing because that's like that's a lost art, right? It's like actual survival.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
but our like modern mode of survival is again having contextual understanding of all the things that can go wrong in the concrete jungle.
Yeah, and the problem with this strategy, at least online, is that you could get over inundated with this violence that it warps reality into thinking that every time you go get gas, you're gonna get shot.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want to let it fester into like pure anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? That's a problem too. That can happen. That's happened to me a little bit.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Anyways.
But yeah, so that's the result of tokenizing everything.
Oh, that's right. I was like
anxiety.
Bring that one back around.
Mass anxiety, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just like the Doppler guy just went on Bankless podcast to explain what is Doppler and what is it, the contextualization of what it is they're trying to bring to market, right? Essentially, it's very similar to what like Meteor and Radium has done. It's like packaging these rails to a very like dev-friendly format so that we can get more iterative attempts at like, again, weaponizing this new value accrual mechanic and applying it to different verticals, right?
Yeah, let the market decide what is deemed valuable, right? If a meme is more valuable than your Web 2 product, it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. But Doppler is more focused on like the EVM side of things, right? Like,
yeah.
So Solana is doing pretty well with this stuff. So like, what the fudge? When is Ethereum coming back to play?
Yeah.
When are ETH devs going to start deploying their iterative attempts, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing a few, right? Just go look up Doppler. They got some cool apps in the works. There's like Ohara. There's like AI agent stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Chupa from last cycle. He did like the music NFT stuff.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So now his he's in development works along with Doppler to essentially introduce new markets for music creation, right? Using these modern rails, because he's like a perfect representation. He's probably been crack deving his like attempt at trying to weaponize the legacy model to foster this vertical of creation, but it's not working, right?
Yeah, correct.
So tap into the new modern model of that, and he's probably going to have a much better shot.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, because I can imagine you're a musician, and you're leveraging the market to test your viability of your songs, right? Your music.
That's right.
Just put it out, and if it's a good song, the market will tell you it's a good song by again staking their value.
That's right.
In that song.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a very crypto native way to do stuff, right? If you're like a musician, like you're saying, an artist, like you want to launch these tokens. Like if you're into this Web3 stuff, and by launching those tokens, you get to learn a lot more about how it's valued.
Not just learn, monetize, right?
And monetize, yeah, as a result, yeah.
Yeah, if one of your songs happens to pull off like, White Iverson, like Post Malone.
Yeah.
Post Malone I don't necessarily know how SoundCloud works, but I don't think like if your song goes viral on SoundCloud, I don't think you get any money from that.
No, I don't think so either.
It's literally all you get are thumbs ups.
Yeah.
It's validation that you made a hit song.
Yeah.
Right?
Then he made a music video, and that's when he made money.
Yeah, that's when people like
that's when I think that's when I discovered Post Malone.
Yeah, it's like Wiz Khalifa hit him up and Mac Miller and like, these already established artists like, dude, good song, come on stage with me. Shit. Man, like that.
SoundCloud is like underground, dude. Like that's where you go discover Post Malone. That's crazy.
That's how, there was a whole generation of like artists that came out of SoundCloud, like in the 2014, 2020 era. I haven't heard much of that anymore these days, so I don't know what happened.
Well, I think you launch on YouTube, basically, with a music video.
Perhaps. Or maybe just music industry is just dead overall. I mean...
Well, I don't. It's definitely not dead, but yeah, it does have to remodel its business model.
This might be it, dude. It's like, because like, you get all the virality juices going, but again, you get instant monetization. So now you're not like 100% subjected to the, the nefarious influences of the music industry, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Meaning like if you happen to produce a viral hit, then your only mode of operation moving forward is like signing a record deal.
Correct.
Typically very like skewed against you.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah.
And you find out 10 years later when you're like Drake that you got fucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Or Kanye.
Yeah. And then you gotta like marry a Kardashian and start a clothing company to like get out of that.
Yeah.
Get out of that trench,
Yeah.
What a rough life.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of like a Nazi, right?
Self-proclaimed, yeah.
Yeah, he's wearing that T-shirt all the time.
He literally released a song called "Hail Hitler," dude. I don't know if you heard that banger. I think you did. I think
you played it, yeah.
I came in with it like blasting one day. It's like, have you guys heard this new hit? "Hail Hitler," dude.
Right.
Good song. I mean, it was cool for like a day or two. Not cool, but it was like catchy. Like it was all over Twitter.
Yeah. It was on fire.
That's right. That's what the kids say these days. Dude. It was lit, right? But yeah, so just to, I guess, kind of put like a conclusion on all of this, right?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, what we're always trying to do is keep the finger on the pulse. Like, where the hell are we headed as like a crypto space, right? To me, the direction's pretty clear. Like, I think these sayings of like tokenize everything, I think it's actually going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
I think Pump.Fun is just like the catalyst to that. And now that more developers are discovering like the rails, they're also all peering under the skirts.
Yep.
And they're seeing like, how did Pump.Fun do what it did? And then, okay, I could leverage this myself and apply it to what it is that I'm interested in as a market to nurture. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I think we're going to see a lot more of this over the next 12 months. And That's going to be weird because I've been trying to envision what that looks and feels like from like a humanities perspective.
Yeah.
Because we're talking like Pump.Fun has created 11 million coins in a year. If we have a systemic, like massive coin overproduction.
Yeah. Over coinization.
Yeah. We're talking like billions of coins created a year.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that do? How does that influence like humanity psychology in the long term? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I feel like that is an interesting kind of experiment because I try to be practical, with like designs. I'll be efficient. And it doesn't seem efficient just to like tokenize everything. And hence that's what we're doing. And I don't think it's that bad. It's just like, because the market is going to gravitate towards the value. And so the value will have volume. Everything else, the 99% of the tokens will not. So I think it's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, you started that off by saying you favor efficiency. So you're not identifying any like inefficiencies here.
Well, I think it's inefficient to tokenize everything, but I think the efficiency is found through market awareness and market valuation of the thing.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the 99% that is very useless, like won't have any volume and therefore won't take up any, headspace.
I see. Yeah. That's the bonding curve should solve that in a sense, or like just the market solve that, right? Where, not everything needs to be worked on or built, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like not every idea is a good idea.
Yes.
And a lot of people could save a lot of headache, frustration, resources, whatever, just by getting that market validation beforehand, right?
Well, think about it. Let's say you don't have a good idea. You still launch a token, and then the community is like, hey, you should change it this way. You should make your app that way.
That's true, yeah.
They make the modifications. Therefore, it reaches product market fit in the context of that market.
Yeah.
And you got your testing group right there.
That's a good point. Yeah, because that is one of the friction points that's going to rear its head as this evolves, right? Is the willingness for the creative types to step into this market arena, which is like it's violent, right? And it's very competitive, and
it can get emotional too, right?
Yeah.
If you're very attracted or you're very attached to your startup, and now your startup is on a chart, and so when number goes up, it feels good, but when number goes down,
it doesn't feel.
It's like you're on a bridge already.
Yeah.
Like looking to jump off.
And then you have like instant community, right? As you launch a coin, a token, it's like people are putting their money, staking it essentially in you, right? To produce something of value. So like, of course, if you're onto something and you're persistent and you're communicative and you have like a true vision in mind, those people are they're going to ride and die for you. They will, right? Because it's a collective alignment too.
Yeah. Jonestown style.
Damn. That would be pretty weird.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. No, that's a real cult coin. If somehow like
Jonestown,
like a meme coin got that like cultish, where it's like, and not just cultish, but like wealthy, right? It's like the meme coin founder is like hooked up to one of these, and he generates, I don't know, $100 million.
Yeah.
Because there's like tens of billions of dollars in market volume. It's Trump coin, but not Trump.
Yeah.
And purchases an island.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? If you hold this token,
you get free access to my island. And
I charter you guys all to my island, and we're gonna build this cult city, right?
Yeah, we're gonna drink Kool-Aid.
Oh my god, that's it. That's a top indicator, guys.
When the Kool-Aid comes out,
when we see a mass suicide event around one of these meme coins.
Damn, that's a proper identification of the top for sure.
Yeah, that ever happened? It's like exit all markets, dude. It was actually a mistake. Or not. That's just one of the crazy things, right?
Yeah. TJ, how much time we have?
5 minutes.
Oh, wow. We were going to talk about other stuff.
We were?
I think.
Well, the only other thing happening is the Elon versus Trump debacle. Oh wait, there's one last thing. The yeah, because I wanted to touch on the adaptive nature, right? Because of these markets, and I was bringing in the founder of Yuga Labs.
Where's that at? Is that here?
I don't know. Let me bring it back to you. Let's see.
Also, today's the day we get to vote for the NAT token to get onto Hyperliquid.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So definitely head over to that. We'll put the links in the description for that. So look for that. I don't have it up because we're recording this before it actually launches, but it should be live today if you're watching it on Saturday.
Cool beans. So yeah, the tweet here that's now in our Discord is Yuga Labs founder basically speaking about some new vote happening in their DAO, the ApeCoin DAO, which proposes essentially the destruction of it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, we needed to talk about this.
Yeah, just because I think this falls in line with the.
Damn, I wanted to spend more time than 5 minutes on this.
Well, we'll talk about it next week, right? Because I think this is important for people to realize, just like how. Again, we've talked about it before, like the fluid nature of crypto in our industry. It's a baby, so things don't like stand in solid state forever, right? And one of the things that was like in its solid state last cycle was the idea of DAOs being the mode of operation for a lot of Web3 startups and such. It's just tokenize them, distribute the responsibility to your community. Hopefully some of these things come to fruition and produce value.
Well, there's one comment to that I just thought about right now, is that creating a DAO is basically like exiting your startup.
It feels that way. Yeah, we saw a lot of project founders raise an ICO and then eventually tokenize their efforts into a DAO.
Yeah.
And they essentially just stopped contributing.
Yeah, they disappeared. Like officially disappeared. It's like it's in the hands of the community now.
Yeah. So here's a Yuga Labs founder. If you don't know what they did, they were Bored Apes, right? They brought Bored Apes to the market, probably the most successful NFT company of all time. They also launched the Other Deeds, which was like a $400 or $500 million metaverse land sale. Pretty notable, right? These guys crushed it. But like you said, eventually they created a token, and they're like, all right, typically you spin up a DAO around this token. Now, like DAO, figure it out. Figure out how to convert all this powerful IP.
Yeah.
And how to build out a metaverse.
Yeah, you better be good at engineering and development.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so essentially here they are kind of like backstepping away from that idea. It's like, he kind of explains it here in this thread.
So we've heard a ton of feedback, never seen anything so unanimous. People want to kill the Ape DAO. The AIP proposes just that. It's time for a leaner, faster org to take the reins. And so I heard a lot of voices. At the end of the day, I just want apes and our core to win. It requires being thoughtful, but also kind of ruthless, eliminating cruft. And as much as possible, doing it away with a win-win for everyone involved. So it says, seriously, though, I'm so out of the DAO thing that this might be stupid or unfeasible, but why not dissolve the DAO? So yeah, people are into dissolving the DAO. And I remember talking to you about this even when we started the podcast, that I never thought DAOs would work, just because everything in society that works came from centralization of like engineers, scientists, like these none of these things, a phone, the development of this table, none of it came from a group of people who with diverse backgrounds and ideas and suggestions. Like none of this came from that style of development. And I never saw a way a DAO would do that.
It's interesting.
And we've had governance for thousands of years now, and that hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's worked enough for us to like still remain alive, but
it's very challenging. Right?
And the thing that has really produced value is like commercialization of things, the monetary evaluation of stuff, right? Technology, right? Everything that we have today is as a result of technology, like literally everything. And so all of that comes from centralized forces, right? To, capitalize on, the development of technology.
Yeah, it's a question of, even a company like the scale of Apple, it's like it's a centralized organization without a doubt. But like, seems like every time that company loses its visionary head, because it's lost them twice in history, every single time there's like a rapid decline in innovation and, in my opinion, company value. So like, I don't know, like individuals matter, and like the vision, the preservation of like a vision is like core and essential to growth of anything, I think. And yeah, you can kind of like leverage a community or like an ecosystem to kind of help and contribute to the growth of that thing, but you can't lose that
the vision head,
the vision head, and expect the same results. I don't think.
No, I totally agree.
So in a lot of cases, like here's Yuga Labs, like same thing with like Ethereum Foundation and Vitalik, right? It's like they've realized it's like, dude, we lost our visionary head. We need you back. We need you back in these meetings. We need you to really guide this ship, right?
Yeah, stop going on dates.
Yeah, because we're here flailing without you, dude.
Yeah.
So Yuga Labs, same thing. It's like, dude, we got a metaverse to build. We said we were going to launch this Otherside thing 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2.5 years ago.
Where's it at? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's cool on paper, the idea of decentralizing order and responsibility to the community, and as long as the incentives are aligned and such. But in all practical reality, just as of right now, isn't really producing anything of fruitful substance to really prove its like effectiveness, right?
Yeah, and the thing to solve that issue, DAOs can work, but they really need like AI.
Yeah, some sort of AI intermediary to like keep things in order and to preserve that initial vision.
Yeah,
along the lines, like, guys, you're liquidating a little too much of the treasury here, and you're going on a little too many vacations.
Too many Lambos on
too many Lambos
on this receipt.
Too many Lambos, not enough scaling, not enough shards, lads. Shit like that, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I wish we could go deeper on this, but
it's just another representation again of like you've got to be adaptable in Web3.
Yeah.
Meaning like, okay, just like we described the legacy monetization mechanisms of last cycle, they don't work anymore. So you got to adapt to the new environment. Same thing with the governance structures of like entities that operate in this industry. They're changing. You cannot just rely on the old mechanisms that don't work anymore. You got to adapt.
Yeah, it's funny.
Or die.
It's funny to dissolve the DAO required a vote. Like the irony in that is just, it's hilarious.
Yeah, well, it's the final stamp on things, right?
Yeah, it is.
Whatever.
All right, guys, that's it for us. Be on the lookout for the vote for the NAT token to be listed on Hypermall. That's going to be today, and the link will be in the description. So look for that. And yeah, well, what are your thoughts on Pump.Fun? We're curious. We want to see what you think, and is there a better model that we're not aware of? Please put it in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.